Hello, and welcome to Howard's Huddle, where we are bridging careers for veterans and military spouses. Thank you for listening in. I'm your host, Jim Lindsay, and today we are joined by my friend and colleague, Leonard Bell. Leonard Bell is currently a team lead at Southern New Hampshire University. Prior to his role as team lead, he served for years on the military career advising team. Prior to getting into higher education, Leonard served for 20 plus years in the United States Navy. Leonard, thank you for your service. Thank you for being here today. And let's get going with Howard's Huddle.
Hello, everyone. My name is, as Jim stated, my name is Leonard Bell. I'm a retired United States Navy vet. Been here working at the university here at Southern New Hampshire for almost 10 years. And Jim and I have been working with the military programs here for about 10 years almost. So Jim and I work in the career department together. So it's been great working with him with our military programs and things of that nature. But I'm here to give you a little bit about Jim, talk about him, ask him a few questions and see how we can roll from here. So again, my name is Leonard. I'm a friend of Jim's and we've been friends for almost 8 or 9 years. And I'm ready to ask him a few questions about Howard's Huddle. Let's go,
All right,
Jim.
let's go.
Jim, are you ready? Question one.
I am ready. I think I'm ready.
Well, I hope you are always ready. That's what we say in the service. Always ready.
Always
Awesome.
ready. That's yes, sir.
First question, Jim, is this. I said, can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to work in career services?
Thanks for the question. My background started a while back as far as working with human resources representatives and recruiters. It started back in about 2004. Where I was working for a local newspaper, right? So, and at that point, my job was, I was a national recruitment advertising representative. I worked with companies, large and small, enterprise companies, mom and pop shops, to help them recruit quality talent. So that's kind of how I got started in the HR and recruitment aspect. I did that for about 12 years or so. And then I ended up getting into higher education. And I was lucky enough to do that at a small school about an hour or so from my house. That's how I got into higher ed. And while I was in higher education, at that point, I was in admissions, right? I had an opportunity to enroll students. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing the most was helping those service members that were looking to go to school and take advantage of their GI Bill. So it was a very small school, very intimate setting. So we got to know each other very well with the staff and the students. So working with those from the military community is something that really made me feel good, right? So I got to help those individuals that served our country and served me and protected me and my family at home. And that school ended up closing down. Southern New Hampshire University had stepped in to do a teach out, what is essentially where one school will come in, provide professors, instructors and everything that they need so that those individuals that are currently enrolled in that school can at least complete that year or that term worth of school. So I was at Daniel Webster College in Nashua, New Hampshire. The school had closed down. I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to interview for, at that point in time, I think we weren't called employee relations. We were called business development at Southern New Hampshire University, where that was a team of folks that went out, established relationships with employers, and those employers were looking to recruit and retain those from the military community. So the role that I'm in here, I'm able to give back to those that served and sacrificed from those service members, military spouses, and then those children of active duty service members.
Jim, I like that. I love how you say you kind of fell into the role. And that's inspiring to hear. And I really appreciate you sharing that insight with us and the viewers and all that good stuff. So thank you, man, for your contributions to the university in that way. So really, especially to our military service members and families. So that's awesome. But you fell into this role, as you said, but behind the role that you fell into, you in this Howard's Huddle, I want to know, can you share more about what inspired you to start this podcast, as well as, and why did you choose the name Howard's Huddle?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? Howard's Huddle, what does it have to do with, we're bridging careers for veterans and military spouses. Who's Howard, right? Why the name Howard? So obviously,
yes,
right? The concept behind Howard's Huddle, right? It's for bridging careers for those in the military community, bridging careers for military spouses and service members and the rest of the military community, those other dependents and things like that. To me, it was a natural, organic step for me to take in my career. I recently completed my degree here at Southern New Hampshire University in communications, and I was looking for different avenues to help support our community here. So, and not only here, right? I'm here for any service member. Somebody reaches out to me, they do it all the time on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect them with anybody, any great organization that I work with that are looking to recruit and retain those from the military community. So to me, it was a next organic step. I went to school for communications for my graduate degree. Honestly, I'm I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve, right? So, but I am like a lot of our students here that got a late start going to school. I didn't complete my undergraduate degree until 2017, and then I completed my graduate degree in 2023. So I know what our students go through, right? At least that aspect of a student. So it's a great way for me to help connect those students with employers. So we've got guests that are coming in that are military program managers from great employers. We've had guests, we'll be having guests from the Department of Labor coming in. We've got service members. We have military career coaches. We've got large organizations, small organizations. So that's kind of what has inspired me to kind of grow what I do here, expand upon that to help more service members. Now, the name Howard's Huddle. Howard, our listeners can't see this because it's only audio, but Leonard, you can see in the background here, I've got two photographs up for Howard's Huddle. The photograph on my right is Howard. That's Howard Gumm, Howard Frederick Gumm. And the other photograph is he's there with his wife, right? So Howard Gumm is a World War II hero. He was killed in action in 1945. So January 1945, he was killed in action. His company was in a ferocious battle for the better part of 7 days with the Germans. They were outnumbered about 7-1. The Germans were just bombarding them. They knew that they had nothing left physically in them. They didn't have the tools and ammunition that they needed. So at that point, the Germans were coming on down to wipe them out. Howard, he was commander of a tank. So he ordered his tank to go out into a position to distract the Germans and attract fire to him, right? So, and by doing so, he was killed instantly, right? His tank got killed instantly. However, the rest of his company was able to fall back to a safe position. So Howard Gumm made the intentional choice to go out, sacrifice his own life to save that of his comrades. And by doing so, he was put in originally for the Medal of Honor. However, it was downgraded at the War Department to the Distinguished Service Cross, which is he made a phenomenal sacrifice. He saved 300 men. Those 300 men have been able to provide, fall back, save, live. Many of them made it home. I'm sure some of them didn't, but he ended up making that sacrifice so those folks can fall back, go home to their families, and contribute to society. So the goal, one of the other goals of the podcast is to raise awareness about Howard's sacrifice. I've been working with folks here in New Hampshire. I've spoken with war historians. I'm in the process of trying to get his medal upgraded from the Distinguished Service Cross to the Medal of Honor, which was what he was originally put in for.
Wow, Jim, amazing. Just his story and the legacy of what he did and the impact that it had on you and why his legacy is important to you. So thank you so much for sharing that insight and a lot about the work that you've done here and continue to do with building relationships with partners and companies and organizations to help our military family, community of students, whether they're veteran spouses or dependent children, whoever using that benefit to go back to school here at SNHU. So thank you so much, Jim.
Leonard, there's one thing I left out. So excuse me for interrupting.
What did you leave out, Jim?
I left out Howard Gumm is my great uncle. So Howard Gumm is the brother of my grandfather. Interestingly enough, regarding Howard and his sacrifice, about 8 months prior, now his brother, United States Navy, he fell ill and he wasn't killed in action, but he died in the military hospital in Brooklyn, New York, about 8 months prior to Howard making his ultimate sacrifice. So that puts a whole new twist behind Howard's sacrifice, the devastation that brought upon the family, right? Not only so that would have been my great grandmother. She didn't just lose one of her boys. She lost another one about 8 months later.
Wow. Yeah. So this is really, really personal, Jim. Not just a story. This is someone that's personal to you, a family member, a descendant. you're a descendant of this family member. So, man, wow, I see why you're so passionate about the name and why this is so important to you, and also to me as well. So I really appreciate it. I'm a military veteran. Said Jim and I have been working together for a few years with our military population of learners and families. So, Jim, I do have another question for you, man. This is exciting. I know our viewers are excited to hear how this all got started and where it's going. So how has your family member military history influenced your perspective on supporting military veterans and military spouses? How has your military, your family history influenced that?
Again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve. I have a long family history of military service. My dad, United States Navy, Korean War veteran. He'll be 90 years old in January of 2025. So
go Navy.
Yeah, go Navy, beat Army. Oh, wait, I shouldn't say that. But hell, I did.
You did. There it is.
There it is. My dad and all his brothers served. So he's one of 5 boys. They all served. My mom is one of 9 siblings, where 6 of the 9 had either served themselves or are military spouses, and a combination of both, right? So I know, Leonard, you are, right? You're married to a Navy veteran. You're a military spouse and a Navy retiree. So we've got that long family history. We already talked a little bit about Howard. World War II, killed in action. And then also, and I think I've shared this with you before in the past, my great-grandmother, so my dad's grandma, she is one of the first women to ever serve the United States Navy World War I. That's as far back as I've traced it. I'm sure it may go back a little bit further, but it kind of skipped a whole generation between my mom side of the family and my dad's side of the family. I think I am one of 41 first cousins, and only one in that generation served. So it gives me an opportunity, like I said earlier in the interview, to give back to the military community who has sacrificed so much. And again, I never met Howard. His wife Marjorie, she lost her husband, young couple. He was 26 years old when he was killed, and so she's a Gold Star widow. And as life went on, she ended up remarrying and things like that. But it's a long family history, and like I said, giving the opportunity to give back to those. I'm just helping them get a job, right? I'm helping them get connected with great employers. Sometimes I say it's the most selfish job in the world because it's not really, I don't feel like I have a job. I go out and I help veterans. Yeah.
Love it, Jim. That's amazing. And you know what? You do a great job, and I appreciate you sharing that historical influence from your family members, right? And even though you skipped a few generations, not generations, but a generation of, 41 relatives, right? First cousins, right? And only one out of that. But think about the ones that went before. And I'm sure, that many people, and that one person, is less than 1% of the population.
1%, right, brother?
So think about it. It's not, that's normal, Jim. So don't think that, I'm looking at my own family, thinking about my children. No, I have 7 between my wife and I, and none of them have joined the service. But so that means maybe they're our grandkids. We have 9 grandkids, 7 adult children. So maybe the grandchildren
maybe in there, yeah.
If they may, it's a historical thing for them, right? The kids, you guys lived in the moment of it, right? But I think that the people that don't live in the moment kind of can see the history of it, and it may impact them a little differently. So, man, that's awesome.
It was never an option. It never came up in discussion to serve. When I was young, when I was 18 years old, it was like, you're either going to college or you're getting a job. But the military part of it never came up. Nope. And I regret that. I regret not serving. So,
you know what, Jim? And I can see that in you because you work so closely and you're really passionate, man. I've watched you in action. I've worked with you, like I said, for a few years, quite a few years now, and you are just as passionate as those who have served. And I mean that, man. And Jim, your father.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
So this is something, too. When I was at the small school, Daniel Webster College, right? One student that I was assisting, he was an Army veteran. And one of the professors that I was working with, Navy retiree, because of helping this student. And I was around the lingo. I grew up. All my uncles on my dad's side that I had an opportunity to get to know. 2 of them died young. And then the folks on my mom's side, always surrounded by those that did serve. And one of the greatest compliments I ever received, Leonard, when I was in a meeting, it was that Army veteran I was sitting down with. His name was Mike. And then one of the professors, his name was Pete. He was the director of one of the departments at the small school. And we were all chit-chatting and things like that. And they thought they both looked at me when I said, no, I'm not a veteran. They're like, you serve? Like, just based upon the conversation. So to me, that was a huge compliment.
Yes.
And I don't ever try. Like, I come out right away. I'm not a veteran. So,
yeah,
but these guys were both like, oh, I had no idea that you didn't serve, Jim. But it's just my respect for the
yeah,
military,
yeah.
flag in our country. So, yeah.
Yo, Jim, you know what? And I can echo that. I can tell that, man, because I remember when you first showed up at SNU in 2017 or 16,
Yeah.
you walking through the mill yard, and next thing you know, you show up with this nice, I think it was a historical,
It,
was it?
big,
Talk,
yeah, the
yeah,
big red one.
yes, Nick, let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk. You remember that, Jim?
I
I
do
was like,
remember that,
we
Leonard.
barely
Yeah.
knew each other, but I thought you were a military veteran myself.
And so
But
that was for
yeah,
my father-in-law. Yeah, he's a
yeah,
Korean War veteran himself, and that
and
was
you,
something that he had, and that ended up in my possession. And I thought it was a great piece for those that did serve that would want to see it, particularly those in the Army. And I shared that with a lot of folks on our team that are service members and things like that. So, and also those higher up at SNHU, some of those in executive leadership. They all got to take their time to go through it. It's a little fragile.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
that, man. And
yeah,
you were so, that's what I was like, man, this guy, we barely knew each other. I think it was like when the first week you got to the
yeah.
SNHU in 2016 and you shared that. So, man, like I said, you would think you would, people didn't know you, but heard you talk about the military and the pride that you have. The people would have, they would think you have served, but you always come out like, hey, I didn't serve. But as you continue to talk and speak, and when you're in those meetings with those employers, you know the lingo, you talk the language, you kind of know the historical stuff, your family's history, right? You're so tied with it, man. So yeah, I'm gonna call you, what is it?
Call me anything you
Honor,
want. It's not late for dinner.
honorary Jim, honorary service member. That's what I call honorary service member Jim. But man, I really appreciate all this, and you asked a lot of great questions, Jim, and I'm sure the audience will appreciate it. I do have more questions for you. I'm gonna ask you.
Listeners, are you a business looking to recruit from the incredible Southern New Hampshire University military community? Are you curious about the ultimate sacrifice, yet the undersung story of World War II hero Howard Gumm? Let's honor him in the way he undoubtedly deserves and help him get the recognition that he is long overdue. Let's honor our military community by helping bridge the gap in their careers, discovering their stories together. Now's your chance to learn and connect. Reach out to Jim Lindsay at Southern New Hampshire University. He's ready to help you tap into his valuable resources. Email Jim at j.lindsay1@snhu.edu. That is j.lindsay1@snhu.edu.
Another question here. What motivated you to focus specifically on bridging the gap in careers for this military community?
Again, in my role at the university, right, I have the privilege of helping support our military students. And then, one thing over the years that as you look into the data, particularly the military spouses, right, the unemployment or underemployment rate for military spouses, I don't know what the latest numbers are, but it's always up there around 20%. It's 4 or 5 times more than it is for the regular civilian population. Now, our service members, and I say service members, I 100% understand that the military spouse and the family is serving with their service member. But, for this kind of conversation, we'll kind of distinguish a little bit between the two. The unemployment rate for the veteran themselves is low. But
yes,
the military spouse, and we did some programs around that a couple of years ago, right? The military
Yep.
spouse, talent's hidden gem, helping support these folks. And really, one thing that had me focus on the military spouse, it was my first year at SNHU, and I had the privilege of helping support a Gold Star widow, and then helping her, getting her connected. She's out in the Midwest. I worked with one of our folks that's still on the career team here, she was her career advisor. And helping her and listening to her and her story and getting her connected with employers was like, I remember I got a speeding ticket going into work because I didn't want to be late for the meeting I had with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dedication, man.
That was 100% the truth. The police officer like, you seem to be going a little fast. Well, number one, there was no traffic on the road because I was coming in for the 11 o'clock shift or 11:30, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So there was no traffic and I didn't want to be late. I'm like, I left on time, but I'm just cruising. And I got pulled over. I just helping her and getting her connected with an employer. And it's just something that it's just so personally rewarding.
Yeah.
So when you hear those,
awesome.
We don't always hear, right? Sometimes we're the last to hear on the career team when somebody finds that opportunity, they get the job, they don't call us, and all of a sudden we reach out like, oh yeah, I didn't get back to you, but I got the job with XYZ company. So yeah.
Yeah, that is so true, man. Like I said, I remember having those conversations with you you helped a lot of military spouses with me. particular with I remember that used to be the company that we worked with. They changed their name. What was the name of it?
It's Instant Teams now.
Instant Teams. What was it before that?
And that's when they first started. Mad skills. Yeah, because hey, we all know military spouses have mad skills, right?
Skills,
so yeah.
So yeah, Jim, and I got my taste of really working with those military spouses and really connecting those employers, like those relationship buildings with you, man, and how you were really motivated to really seek to find employment opportunities for them with those employers. And you were dedicated, man. I mean, I remember doing all the some career fairs where we all went in and helped students write their live with resumes and cover letters. I'm like, that was so really good stuff, man. You really, really dedicated to that military family and just the spouses in general. You really look for those opportunities. Thanks for sharing that, man. That was really good. I like that. I'm sure the audience are loving this. Another question I have for you, Jim, we're going to keep moving because I don't want time to skip away from us. How do you think employers can better support veterans and military spouses in their hiring process? What are some things you think they can do?
That's a great question. Here at Southern New Hampshire University, I don't know what the exact number is now, but I know probably about 6 years ago or 5 years ago, I heard the number that we had, I think 100 folks that are here just to help support our military affiliated learners. We have that many people on staff focused on supporting military, from admissions to for advising, financial services, career, a lot of folks, right? And we have a lot of service members, we've got a lot of veterans and military spouses that work here at Southern New Hampshire University.
I agree.
But it was interesting. We didn't have any, I'm out here talking with these employers and helping them put together their own military recruitment programs, right? So many of them don't, especially those smaller to mid-sized companies. And I was kind of astounded to find out we didn't have anybody here at SNHU that was focused solely on military recruitment. I worked with our own folks here at SNHU and, helped them and gave ideas so they could build. Now we have somebody here that we've got our own, I forget her exact title, but one of our colleagues is now, we'll call her the military program recruitment lead for talent attraction here at SNHU, right?
Yes.
So we now have that here. But I also noticed while working with companies that wanted to recruit and recruit veterans and those from the military community, military spouses and whatnot. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know what to do, right? So that's why I put some of these panels together and these different programs over the years. So employers, some of these larger employers, we had companies, enterprise companies come in during our panels to talk about what they did and how they developed their military recruitment program at their company. And one of the biggest things is not only the recruitment. Recruitment is great. Number one, you got to recruit them into the right position, right?
Oh, love it. Yes.
You bring a veteran in and you get him the wrong job. It does that veteran no good, and it does the company no good. So they're not going to stay long. So you got to recruit them in for the right position. But even more importantly than that, you got to retain them.
I love it,
so,
Jim.
Number one, start by recruiting them and bringing them in to the proper role. Also, especially those veterans that maybe like yourself, maybe it's your first job after 20 years in the military, right? Or maybe somebody went in at 18, they did 4-6 years. They've never had a job outside of the military. Coming into the civilian world and sitting down with all these people that didn't experience what you've experienced, you kind of be like, I don't know if it's the right word or not, maybe like a lost soul a little bit. You're a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit different, the conversation and everything. Yeah. So one big thing, and I know we did it here at Southern New Hampshire University, is to put together groups like we have our military-minded employee resources group. So that's an opportunity for those from the military community to get together, shoot the breeze, have lunch together, talk about things, and help support each other. And by doing that also, as part of that, have a program in place where, so if you're recruiting a veteran in, make sure they have a mentor at the employer, right? So they have somebody there that they can rely on. Yeah. A lot of folks, we have a great company here with Southern New Hampshire University. We get to work remotely, right? So, but most companies aren't like that. We do still have folks up in Manchester and in Hooksett at the brick and mortar school. But it's more than just showing them where the water cooler is and where to drop off your clothes and dry cleaning, right? It's to let them come together. So, I love what we do here, just on the career team alone. We get to mentor folks when they come on board. But I think, and that's great too for them just coming in to learn their job and help them get acclimated, but have that long-term mentorship with somebody other than just, somebody from their team that can help them train them for their job. Have
Yeah,
somebody
man.
that's experienced the same thing they did while getting into their first civilian job or maybe second civilian job. Because many, I forget the exact stats, but most veterans, when they get out of the military, they don't stay at their first job because
Nope,
they're like,
they
what
don't.
is going on here? And
That is
until
so
they
true.
find out, I guess this is what it is working in civilian world now. So then
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
their
look.
second or third job that they stay at.
Yeah, and I know, from that experience, Jim, too, when service members are transitioning out of the service into that civilian job or that job that's not military affiliated in any kind of way, a lot of those jobs don't have the structure that the military had, right? There's a true structure in which you have to adhere to, and we all know going in, no matter what rank you're in, you're not the boss, right? So it's clearly established that you're not the commander in chief, right? And and it's really from there you understand that there's a hierarchy and a chain of command, but really there's a laid out foundation for a lot of military service members. When they transition, they know that they leaving us. They don't realize it, but there's so much structure in the military, but when they hit that, like you said, that civilian side, sometimes that first gig out of the military, they don't stay. So you hit a lot of really great points. Another great thing that you pointed on was how much we, as as an institution, and you work with a lot of platforms that a lot of different avenues and platforms for our military learners, whether it's online. You mentioned how we have the campus side of the house where we do have events for our locals, those states that connect with New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, Massachusetts, those states that are close by. When you've been present, I've been present with you at career fairs where you have all these state employees that come through, the tri-state or quad states, and we have military members from our local area come into the campus. And also with the campus, Jim, you and I both serve on a military steering committee for those campus students. And that's something you didn't touch on, but it kind of like hinted around a little bit. But we do have a veterans lounge on campus where those military students that are attending that brick and mortar, like you said, can connect with other military members, right? And
it gives them a chance to go sit and chill, whether they're shooting the breeze or they're up there playing a video game, but they're in a sea filled with other folks. But it's nice for them to be able to sit down with their comrades in arms, right?
Love it.
Yep.
That is awesome, Jim. Hey, man, thanks for sharing all this good information. I'm sure our listeners are going to be excited to hear what's next, because this next question I have for you, Jim, is centered around just that. How do you envision the community of listeners contributing to the mission of this podcast?
So the podcast itself, number one, bridging careers for veterans and military spouses. That's what this podcast is about. Those that are out there listening, if you are a military program recruiter, if you are a veteran, if you are in a government agencies that look to bring veterans in, if you're a part of the government that helps support veterans, I would love to have those folks come on in from the VA, anybody that can contribute to bridging that gap, specifically for our veterans and our military spouses. If you're with a company that has remote jobs, military spouses, and again, we know they serve with their service member, but they have to move, right? As they PCS across the country or wherever they're going. So any of those companies that might have remote work that spouses can take along with them as they transition to a new location. That's something that's important. And any other thing is, number two, is to really raise awareness around Howard Gumm and his sacrifice. We're trying to get this out, his name. We want him to be remembered. We don't want him to be forgotten, what he had done and what he had sacrificed for. I don't know. I know I've gone through what somebody has to do to receive the Medal of Honor, right? He checked all the boxes. His captain put him in for the Medal of Honor, and it was downgraded. I have actually the original handwritten letters from Howard's captain, Howard's chaplain, and Howard's another sergeant in Sergeant Howard Gumm's company to his widow, explaining what had happened. And unfortunately, and this is where the awareness really needs to be made, Howard's military records were destroyed in the fire, and I believe it was the fire in St. Louis in the early 1970s. So there are they have no military records for him. I shouldn't say none. The only thing they have in his records is when his widow, his Gold Star widow, in 1985, and I don't know the circumstances behind it because I never met her, but in 1985, she requested her Gold Star. She was denied because it was too far past his sacrifice. So
Wow.
I'm out here. I have the documentation needed to prove what he did for his sacrifice.
Wow.
So I've been working with folks, different senators' offices here in New Hampshire. Like I mentioned earlier, speaking with certain war historians. I've got a go-between for some folks who are living recipients of the Medal of Honor. And they said, it's a long shot, but there's a chance because he meets all the criteria to receive the
Yeah.
Medal of Honor. And that's why he was originally put in for it.
You talking about meeting the criteria, Jim? He paid the ultimate price, right?
Right. Yep.
So
He
truly,
was given
man,
no orders to go out in that field.
he
It's
wasn't.
right in the letter. It's right in the letter from his captain. Nobody gave him an order. He knew the only way these men were going to survive is if he did that. Yep.
Wow.
And he just went and did it.
True hero, man. True hero. Man, wow. Jim, I have to take a breath from that one, man. Great. I'm hoping the listeners, are truly understanding the trueness of this podcast. And like you said, the two things the awareness and also not forgetting Howard, to remember his legacy and what he, and also to make a push, Jim, so you can really not just share his story, but for his story to come to light so it can continue for him to get what he truly paid the ultimate sacrifice for, man. So thank you for sharing that. Another question I have for you. Can you tell us about a mentor or an influential figure in your life who shaped your career? Could you please share a little bit about that?
So I'm going to say there's two people I'm going to kind of use on this. I had, number one, my dad, right? Nobody's perfect, right? We all know that.
Yeah.
You're a dad, I'm a dad. We're both grandpas. I got another granddaughter coming up next week. So we all make our mistakes in life, right? But
of course,
my dad, in the way he helped to raise our family, he served, like I said, in the United States Navy, Korean War, but he guided us the right way as best he could. Everybody's background and experiences are different. His childhood shaped him, and then that kind of shaped me. So I would say my dad, but then ultimately to be given an opportunity to get into higher education, right? An old coworker of mine, Sue, she was at Daniel Webster College. I had known her for years. I met her when I worked for the newspaper and I was putting on those career fairs and connecting folks. And Daniel Webster College was one of the colleges, that would participate in these career events I would put on. So I had an opportunity to meet Sue, and she was one of the deans down there. So her giving me an opportunity when I left the newspaper industry to get into higher ed, it just snowballed after that. And like I said, it was almost like I kind of just stepped into my job here at SNHU. But we all know how many people applied for a role at Southern New Hampshire University.
We do, yes.
Our HR team, our team of talent acquisition, talent attraction, whatever the title is, I think it's talent attraction.
Yeah.
They do a phenomenal job. So
they do.
I was blessed to land where I am. But I would say, my dad, obviously, and then Sue, like I said, giving me an opportunity, and she was instrumental in me getting my career started in higher education.
Wow. Thank you, Jim, for that, man. Man, you answer these questions with so much compassion and so much truth telling. I love it, man. So amazing. Love it. For our audience, we have a couple more questions before we get to the end of this podcast, Jim. But here's another question. What are your hopes for the legacy of Howard and the impact of this podcast? You kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, but what is the hope? What is the hope for the legacy of Howard and the impact of this podcast?
Yeah, right. So like we discussed, the podcast itself, the main focus is to bridge careers for spouses and our veterans. But ultimately, for the legacy of Howard, is to him to get that medal he deserves. Ultimately, that is the ultimate thing I want for the legacy of Howard. I have his medals behind me on the chair, on the shelf. I have his Distinguished Service Cross. I have his Purple Heart. I have his Bronze Star. I have his chevron. I have his commander's whistle for his tank, right? So obviously I never met the man, right?
Wow.
But,
still,
I talk with him all the time. It's the strangest thing, Leonard. Like, I know him. Yeah.
You do know him. You have his belongings. I mean, to me, that's Jim. That's gave me chills, man, as you were telling that part of the story, man. So that's awesome. Seriously, that's awesome. And you doing it. If anyone's there to help him from this generation to get that what he deserves, right? What he died for, what he sacrificed for, you the person that's going to help him get that. And I think I think you're going to, Jim. I think in just from listening and just hearing your, how compassionate you are about seeing this through, I think you're the person that's going to really figure this out on how to get him what he truly should have gotten years and years and years ago, right? So continue to do that, man. If I can support you in any kind of way, I will. But you seem like you're doing a lot of the things that are right to try to move that forward. So great stuff, man. Really love it. Thank you, Jim. Final question for you.
Don't make it too hard on me, Leonard.
It's not the final question of our relationship, but of this podcast. Says, what do you want listeners to take away from the first episode and for future ones as you move forward with these podcasts, Jim?
What I want people to take away from this is, number one, we need to get Howard recognized for his sacrifices. That's part of the first, and then bridging careers. That's what we need to do. So
Gotcha.
Essentially, I want folks to know about my passion behind the work that I do. And I call it work. I don't call it a job. We got to call it something, right? It's a job. But
it comes with a paycheck,
my
so
job.
we got to call it something. It comes with a paycheck and benefits.
Yeah,
so
right, exactly. So,
right.
And you know what, Leonard, this is something I'll probably do once I get into that semi-retirement road, right?
Yeah.
I would love to be able to continue to do that. I want listeners to know about the passion that I have for helping our veterans and our military spouses find work in the industry, in the field, and something that they're passionate about, right? So, because if you're passionate about a job and you love it, it's really not work.
It's not work.
It's not work.
I think you and I both feel that way.
Yeah. And I'm going to steal a line that one of the folks that I work with had mentioned something similar to me. He's like, Jimmy, I have a hobby I get paid for. That's kind of what they say. So if I have a hobby and I'm helping veterans and spouses find work and I'm raising awareness about Howard and hopefully get him the honor that he deserves for his sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice, he wrote the blank check.
Come on. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Jim, thank you so much, man. Amazing,
hey, thanks, Leonard.
Amazing. Hey,
yeah, thanks for interviewing me, and we're gonna get this flipped around in a couple of weeks where you're on the other side, brother.
Hey,
so you better get ready.
Jim, I'm always ready. Always ready.
Always ready. Yes, sir.
Hey, man, awesome. I'm sure your viewers appreciate this, man. But really great. Love it. Howard's Huddle. Howard, we will be getting, and we will help you. And I know Jim is gonna do it. He's the man fit for it. Get you what you truly deserve, brother. So.
All right.
Hey, he's never forgotten, Jim.
Never forgotten. Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks, Leonard.
Hey, you're welcome, man. Take care, brother.
I've been your host through this incredible episode, Jim Lindsay, and I can't wait to welcome you back for another round of inspiration, knowledge, and empowerment. So don't miss out. Tune in next time. Same place, same energy, here on Howard's Huddle.